We're going to talk about the holy fire. And the first thing I want to share with you, my sisters, is it is really imperative as we exist in the third dimension, as we exist in the dense third dimension. We have to remember that this dimension is a mirror of the higher dimensions. It is a reflection. Some call it an illusion. I call it that sometimes. Some call it a dream. I call it that sometimes. But it is a mirror. So what takes place here is an indication of what is taking place in the spirit. And so even though we know this, I know this, I'm sure many of you know this, it doesn't keep us as third dimension beings from feeling loss. It doesn't keep us from feeling sorrow, empathy, even anxiety at times. Because the physical body, the physical mind, the brain is capable of bringing all of these emotions up when we see our fellow sisters and brothers, whether we agree with them all. We have all kind of isms going on: sexism, genderism, racism, economicism, society status, power, control, the rich, the poor. We have all of these things that we sit up and we speculate on. But when this kind of catastrophe hits, you would have to be a heartless, soulless person to not feel empathy, at the least, for those who are going through this right now, right? But as a spiritualist, I then go to the mother and I ask her what's going on. Because what I do know, and what we have to remember as divine feminines, is that the physical world is a mirror. Understanding the supremacy of the mother is important. Is important. I have talked to people about the mother in my everyday life, online as well, of course. And I don't shove her down people's throats. But if you speak to me and you say something, and I feel the push to drop a little seed, I'm going to drop the seed. And you could do what you want with that seed. You can, as the scripture said, some seed fall on good ground, good soil, and it grows. Some seed falls by the wayside, and the birds eat it. Some seed fall amongst the thorns, and it is choked out, right? As a seed dropper, it's not my responsibility to really be concerned with what a person does with the seeds. You know, every video that I do, every time I show up on my channel, what's done with the seeds is up to the individual who listens. But I've talked to people, and it's funny to me because the world has been under this God their Father for so long. And I don't want to get into the truth of what that is. I just want to talk about the neglection of the womb of creation by society, by religious structures and systems, all of them, all of them, in one way or another, in different ways. But she has been suppressed in all of the religious systems. Okay. And so it's funny because when I talk to people who have a innate intrinsic relationship with God their Father. And I try to enlighten them on the feminine aspect without even really removing the validity of him. I just trying to enlighten you that you have a supreme feminine aspect that you are not in relationship to consciously. And that may be where all of the imbalance in your life, all of the imbalance in your relationships, all of the imbalance in you might be coming from. Might be. Just consider it. And I sometimes get this response from the children of God, their Father. Well, God is neither male nor female, really. So, I mean, people always want to talk about, God is one, God is feminine, and God, because, it really is both. And da, da, da. I said, okay, I'll give you that. But it's funny to me how when we start talking about the supremacy of the feminine aspect, the response is to justify the nature of God. The response is to attempt to degenderize God, as long as we are not talking about the masculine. When we talk about the masculine, it's perfectly okay to genderize him. I mean, nobody argues whether God is a he or not. Nobody has any justification about him not being both, as long as we recognize that the supreme aspect is a he. But as soon as someone comes along and says that's actually not correct, the supreme aspect of the Godhead is a she, then all of a sudden we get folks responding, well, it don't really matter. It don't really, God is really. Okay, all right. To understand the supremacy of the feminine aspect is to understand spiritual order of the spiritual realms.